Hey, how's it going? Veteran Trash Talk Nation. It's me, Len, your host, Pacific Tita, with Clifford Bauman, our mental health warrior, with Throw Punch Monday and another episode 17. So this month is April. We're going to be talking about a lot of subjects. So for the month of April, we're going to focus on it's the military child of the military child month. What else is it? Autism Awareness Month and Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Mhm.
So I'm joined here with Cliff, my co-host. I have Rachel, our newest moderator with VTT. She is a certified life coach and she's out of Oklahoma. And I have my friend Brandy, who I met last month at a hike with Irreverent Warriors. And she's a realtor out of Tennessee. And I have my good friend Jason, who I begged to come on the show today. We served in the Navy together. He was a Navy officer, and he's also entrepreneur. So we'll get into a little bit about that. Cliff, do you have anything you want to talk about now? Any
Well, I just want to
topics?
say that, hey, happy Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend here in Virginia. We finally got warm weather, but it's supposed to be cold again, I think on Wednesday or Thursday, which kind of sucks. But we were talking and laughing earlier. I was scrolling through because I like to post memes sometimes, and I found one today, and I'm going to post it on my on a Facebook page. I think tomorrow or Wednesday it's going to post, but it says stressed spelled backwards is desserts. I had no idea. So hey, so when I'm stressed, I'm going to eat desserts and not be upset about it and just turn stress into a happy thing, right? Because that's what we do as mental health warriors. We're going to turn things happy. So when I get stressed, I'm just going to eat a piece of chocolate cake and say now it's dessert and I'm not stressed no more.
That sounds like my philosophy.
Hey, there we go.
All right.
Well, it's putting the positive spin on things, you have to find the bright side, even if you have to flip it backwards.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one thing that we talk about a lot here on Throat Punch Mondays is we bring up a lot of topics and things. And it's very important that people, always look at things from a different perspective. Right. And that's one thing we love to do here. And that's what Veterans Trash Talk is all about.
Thanks, Cliff. So we have stressed equals dessert. So if you're stressed, maybe that's why people eat ice cream when they're stressed out. I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
Just eat
busy,
anything.
Right?
I eat whatever doesn't eat me first.
That's
so Rachel's our newest moderator. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Rachel.
Well, I just don't. I'm a reserve veteran for 21 years, and I also I was a contractor, or actually a term DoD employee. It was a little different than contracting. Worked in kind of civil affairs actually for the Army and the Marine Corps when I was overseas, and I did that for 4 years in Iraq. And I just lots of things. I have my background, my professional background is writing. I was a journalist you can look me up and actually find a lot of the stories that I've written. There's a story about my weird life. I'm also in the oil field, and so I'm an oil well pumper. And there's a story about me in the New Yorker magazine, so you can kind of learn a little bit about me in the New Yorker. But I think the most important thing to me is that I'm a life coach. I'm a certified life coach right now, and have been since 2012. And so it turns out, as my practice kind of moved along, I ended up working with lots of people with trauma, which makes perfect sense. And so that's my passion, and that's what I do with you guys on VTT, as well as just having fun trying to moderate everything. We have a huge group in VTT. I love how big we've gotten. So.
Yeah, thank you for that. VTT has gotten big, and then we have all the newbies talking about, well, you can't post this or we can't post that. There's no freedom of speech, blah, blah. What they don't understand is that it's an app that we signed up for. It's not our not our personal business. I don't own Facebook. I don't make the rules of Facebook. This is the community guidelines, sir. You have to follow these guidelines, sir. We've been already deleted 4 times, sir. So that's why your comment is being deleted, sir. Every time. It's people want to complain all the time. Either way, we have Brandy, and I'm so excited to talk about this. So I did a hike last month with Irreverent Warriors, and they're such a great group of veterans, and they hold a hike once a month. No, more than once a month, but like
they have hikes all over the world, multiple
all,
hikes in all cities, like throughout the year. It's
and so they use humor and sarcasm to combat veteran suicide or something like that. And I know I'm saying their mission wrong, but so what their primary mission is to combat veteran suicide, just like us, veteran trash talk. And so that's where I met Brandy from, and she's so warm and welcoming. So Brandy, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
My name is Brandy. I am a real estate agent out of Nashville. That's a new thing. COVID happened, so I had to kind of go, what am I going to do? So I've been working property management, got my real estate license, and now I'm hitting the run real estate. And I actually got a job offer doing what I did in the reserves. I was an administrative assistant. I was the bomb administrative assistant. I had started out, anybody that knows the Army, I was
we
71
need paper pushers.
I was a 71 Lima, and I fell into a position that I became theater liaison. So I was perming documents, doing formal LODs, whatever anyone didn't want to do, they just kind of threw in my cubicle. So I can pretty much do everything because my boss was the CW5. And I said, how do I do this? And he says, there's a shelf with the regulations. And I'm like, okay. So I read them. And I've kind of, because I was so young then, I was like 20 when I deployed. So I was so young back then and impressionable that's now what I do. I research everything. I try to learn everything. I analyze facts, and I love over the past year kind of working on myself. But yes, I'm excited to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us. And I want to say in the Navy, they kind of train you to do that, to look at pubs, because they're like, oh, we'll go look at it, because in order for us to advance, we have to take tests. So we have to look at publications and do our research and stuff like that. Sometimes we can Christmas tree things. And by what I mean by that is like you just fill in the bubbles and then you get lucky and then you might make rank. Sometimes you just write your name and make rank. But a lot of times you have to actually study for that. And so looking stuff up, I remember telling my junior sailors all the time when I was a supervisor, when they were asking me questions, I'm like, well, did you look it up first before you asked? Like, there's the pubs right there. And so they told me that they've instilled that into their sailors after I've left the ship. Jason.
Hey.
What's going on, man? So I actually messaged him, begging him to come on the show. I was like, come on, you have to come on. And we've been really good friends for, I don't know, 15 years.
Yeah,
for a long time.
It has.
Tell us about yourself. Tell us about everything. I want to know everything.
Well, of course, I'm a prior naval officer, Supply Corps. Met this lovely young lady on the Nimitz, the best ship, of course, and
the Mighty Nimitz, 5-star.
That's right, the Mighty Nimitz.
I want to hear all the stories that Lynn's not telling us now. Jason's on.
Oh, I can tell. Whatever happens on the Nimitz stays on the Nimitz.
No, it's on Westpac. No, it's what happens on Westpac.
Oh, yeah.
On Westpac.
What happens on Westpac stays on Westpac. Yeah, I am currently a contracts administrator officer. I manage contracts over in Northrop Grumman. Big high dollar contracts. We're dealing with the Global Hawk program right now. And if you're not familiar with that, that is the autonomous aircraft that the military is using. And just a couple of weeks ago, we had one of our major success flight operations. So that's a big thing for us as well. And just ensuring that, of course, making sure that the government, the U.S. military, continues to have the best capability warfighting as possible. I'm also a father, of course. I got 2 daughters as well. One of them 13 years old, and the second, she is 5. The oldest does have autism as well. And not to get into a lot of not to get into it right about now. I can discuss it, later on. But one of the missions that I've started to do in my life is, specifically for my daughter.
So to get more care easily accessible to your daughter and to other parents as well, right?
Well, yeah, that's the overall goal. Overall. because what happens is that during my time just dealing with my daughter and just trying to find those products, those services, and just everything that encompasses what is needed to help her, the issue has been, it's always been taking a while to actually find that, or it's
Right.
out there. It's out, it takes long to find it. It's out there. But what I've done is I've started to create a platform that makes it a lot easier for individuals to find those products, those services, those resources for those parents and those caregivers that do have individuals, not only that have autism, but may also have Down syndrome or cerebral palsy. So what we're doing is that we are actually scaling to encompass as much of the special needs disability community as possible, and build that ecosystem that's going to help the parents throughout the life cycle of the individuals that they're taking care of.
So Jason's so humble, and what he's working on is actually huge. It's a huge platform for parents with disabled children to find these resources. Because if you don't know anything about it, it's like, well, where do I go? What do I do? I remember as a young sailor, my son, who's 21, he's turning 21 this year. He was diagnosed with autism. Well, I was like, well, what the is that? Like, I don't know what to do. And I think that was back in like 2005. And this is before like we had the kind of internet that we have today. You actually had to drive places and ask people things. But yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. But a show of hands from everybody on the panel. How many of you guys are parents? And how many of you are parents while you were active duty or in the military? And so it's the month of military child. And I was watching this TikTok, and I forget what her name is. Her name is Kimberly. And I don't know her TikTok handle, but she's a self-proclaimed Britney Spears translator, right? The Southern translator, because Britney Spears will say like this long ass paragraphs with ellipsis, and people from the North or people from other countries don't understand what she's saying. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Does Britney Spears really need a translator? But she's a Southern translator, and she'll say it in a Southern accent, the way that people from the South would understand, or like anyone would normally understand. So she was also a military brat. And then she had this video that was kind of like, it was kind of a woe is me, like, oh my God, I was a military child and I had to transition in between the school year. And now I'm sitting next to all these kids who know nothing about military, and I'm just being overwhelmed with all these questions. And she had to go through that over and over and over again. Now, how many of us parents had to deal with that with our kids transitioning during the school year? I did.
And then how many of us actually did also deal with that growing up as brats?
Right. Fortunately, I was a military brat in the sense that my dad was in the military, but we never moved. He like always went elsewhere, and he was geobatch, and then we stayed in San Diego. So we had that sense of stability. And I don't know how I would handle it moving, because I remember one time my parents were trying to look for a house in Temecula when it was up and coming. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm going to lose all my friends. And I threw this big old tantrum. And so we stayed in Southeast San Diego. I want to ask you guys, it's month of the military child. Our military children are super resilient, but there's all these emotions that we have to deal with. How do you deal with those emotions when it comes to PCS?
Well, and Lynn, this brings up a great subject. For those who don't know, I retired last year. My wife is still active duty and stationed in Rhode Island. And so I'm home with our 18-year-old and our 7-year-old boy, Lloyd. And, it's always tough when one of the parent leaves. I think it's harder when the mom leaves, especially on boys. Lloyd, we talk about this before, where, it's okay during the day with Lloyd, but, at night when it's time to go to bed, that's really when he misses mom, because dad's not a big cuddle bunny like mommy was, right? And so that's been a big adjustment for us. But, Lloyd had a birthday party he went to this weekend, and for one of his friends in his class, in his school. And I was talking to one of the moms, and they're getting ready to PCS to go to Fort Knox, Kentucky. And the girl in Lloyd's class, Lloyd's and her are really good friends. And we were talking on the way home afterwards, and of course she's affected by it, but also sometimes we forget that the friends are affected by it too, because Lloyd was really upset that his friend Lily wasn't going to be in school next year with him. And so, we had a long talk about that. And of course, we always offer to, you can always call and talk to him or whatever. But I think sometimes we as parents forget, that, we're not moving, or when the kid does move, but they're also losing a close friend. And he was kind of upset by that.
Yeah, they're still human beings. They still have emotions. They still have friends. They have a social life. Thankfully, now we have social media.
It helps.
Yeah.
Occasion. It's so cute to listen to them.
Mhm.
If they don't talk on the PS4 and the video games, because we're a big gaming family, it's funny just to listen to them talk on the cell phone and be able to FaceTime. And then when they can't FaceTime, how upset they get because they can't FaceTime. So it's kind of funny. And then you're scrambling around to try to figure out how to get them so they can FaceTime.
Right.
But it's nice that they can still have that personal connection.
Brandy, were you going to say something, or was that Rachel?
Yeah.
Brandy, go ahead.
I was actually raised in Jacksonville. My stepdad was in the Navy, and we never left Jacksonville, but you know how big it is. I moved from school to school like all the time. So for me, it was very difficult. I never connected with friends because I knew that I was never going to stay anywhere. So that's always been an issue with me.
That's
It's
hard.
like there wasn't stability with friends. Ironically, I actually was on the phone with this girl from high school. We laughed. She was my friend in 3rd grade. And then again in 5th grade, I ended up at the same school with her. And then in high school, we ended up back together again. And that
Wow.
was really good for me. So then fast forward, I was reservist. My son was a baby when I deployed. And that was really hard. And then of course, what had happened, I got pregnant and that situation. But when they got older, I'd married my husband who was active duty, and I was out by then. And so I always made sure, because I lucked up, he was AGR. So I made sure that we transitioned moves every 3 years during the summertime and kind of worked with the kids, and they were upset, but we maintained contact. Like, again, the technology, the FaceTiming. And I mean, even to this day, my daughter goes down and visits her friends from back in Florida that she went to school with.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
she keeps in contact with them. So yeah, it's a hard, there's no right answer. So it's just kind of figure it out and hope for the best.
No,
I
I
mean,
know.
I think,
Go ahead, Rachel.
sorry.
No.
I
Go.
think we do it. I think we are doing it a whole lot better now. And we do have the technology that we did not have when I was growing up. When I was growing up, literally we moved every 2 years. And there were times when I changed schools every 1 year. No, I mean, it definitely had an impact on me. I can look back. I was just recently looking back at my grade cards, and I could see where when we would move, my grades would go down for the first year that I was there. And then when we would, I would maybe get a chance to be at the same school for the same year for 2 years, then my grades would start to climb out of the shitter. And then about that time, we would move again. So we just didn't have the technology. We had phones. And I remember very distinctly when we moved to Virginia, Cliff, we were at Langley, and I got on the phone and did a long distance phone call to my friend that we had left behind in Pennsylvania. I was so lonely for her, and I got in real serious trouble over, this phone call that cost a lot of money, because back in the day, the long distance cost. And
I had to pay for that.
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh. And my parents,
like 10 cents a minute.
Yeah, it was, well, it was even more then. It was like 40 cents a minute. It was ridiculously high. So anyway, but the only thing I can compare to is with my daughter and being in deployment, which for me came right before her. When I was given orders for deployment, it was right before her graduation. And she struggled quite a bit, with those resentments that actually ultimately what it was supposed to be was that I was going to be gone during her graduation, which, I could have been deployed any other time, but so she had a lot of resentment, and we just did a lot of talking about it. And I allowed her, I think more than anything, I allowed her to have her feelings. I think that was probably the most important thing. I didn't internalize it or feel like somehow I was responsible for causing her all this pain. Deep down, I felt that way, but I didn't you know, I just let her have them, and I didn't require her to be happy about moving and or about whatever we were going to do.
No, that's great. I kind of, my 16-year-old, I've started letting, I listen to that book. I do a lot of podcast. I listen to a lot of audiobooks and podcasts because I drive an hour and a half back and forth every day. And that was one of those things, was the art of listening. And I learned to just listen to her more and not take it personally, because I understand she's just trying to express her feelings and let them out in a safe environment. So instead of me going and being defensive and reactive, is just letting her have her feelings and saying, I appreciate you sharing it with me. And it's actually helped our relationship. We go for our little walk, we play the Pikmin games, and we do our walks and have our mom-daughter bonding.
Communication is super important. Now, for us parents with exceptional family members, right? We have that EFMP program. It's a little bit harder because there's a lot more logistics that goes to moving. And when you have an autistic child, when you take them out of an environment that they're so used to, you're liable to have all these breakdowns and episodes and all that stuff. Jason, I know when we were deployed and all that stuff, she was still a baby, right? Your daughter?
Yeah, she was a baby. She was just born, actually. So it really wasn't any issues as it pertains to me going off and being on deployment. Well, I take that back. I think one of the big issues was I went to Afghanistan for a year and coming back, and with her, it was not, she didn't recognize me. And of course, with her and her autism as well, just having outbursts and just trying to, you know, reacclimate herself with me, and knowing that, hey, this is daddy, and showing her, you know, pictures. And while I was overseas, I tried my best to ensure that she did recognize me, which it possibly did help. It possibly did lessen the blow, because I would send her videos of myself, you know, singing lullabies and all that good stuff, you know, for Christmas or what have you, and just trying to ensure that she would at least know, you know, some resemblance of me when I returned. When I did come back for good, it really was just a lot easier. It was a little bit hard during my R&R, coming back for R&R, because she was like, okay, dude, like who are you?
Who is this guy? Why is, or I know who you are, but why are you here? You know, because they're so used to the routine. And with autism, there has to be a certain way, and once that certain way is disrupted, then their whole world is disrupted.
Exactly. So just knowing that, taking those next necessary steps, like I said, doing the videos, sending it to her, just trying to make sure that she at least will recognize me when I come back home, and it really did like lessen the blow when I returned.
Right. So I remember before FaceTime and before video teleconferencing, we used to record videos, remember, in the ship's library, and then like it would actually record it on a disc and then send it home of us like reading a book. And so we would do that in our uniform on deployment, read the book and send it home. When I joined, my son was already a toddler. And so and then I wasn't with his father anymore. And so when we eventually started to PCS and move, I didn't take him out of his environment. So he stays with his father, and he comes with me every winter, every spring, every summer, all that, just so that he can have his stable environment there all the time with his dad and his stepmom. So definitely
my wife,
different.
Brother's son's autistic, and one thing when they travel on vacations and stuff, we always, and she makes it known, and she does, she's a phenomenal mom, and hats off to anybody with children of special needs. My heart goes out to all of you, but you're strong parents, and you know, we tell her we understand, because if you can't force, with her child and autism, if they don't want to do something, you can't force them to do it, because it makes it 2,000 times worse if you try to. And Crystal's mom is raising her sister, who passed away a couple of years ago, is raising her younger son. He was just diagnosed with autism a couple of years ago. And, you know, it's one thing that you have to realize when you have friends with people with autism children, just understand that their plans may change. And, you know, if you plan to go out and have dinner, or you plan to go sightseeing or do this, if that child doesn't want to do it, they're going to have to change or modify your plans. I mean, and we told them we were absolutely okay with it, and we fully understand that. And I think sometimes with people who don't have children with special needs, I think sometimes they don't understand it, or they forget that maybe.
Right.
But
So with families with special needs, we do have in the military the EFMP program. Were you part of that, Jason?
Yes, I was, and it really did go a long way. Of course, you know, with a lot of things that are covered and a lot of the resources that are provided. The issue now is just looking at it is once you're done with the military, you won't be able to get those same resources. You don't have the same access. That's number one. And number two is it really does depend on what state that you're staying in as well, because you have a state like California that is one of the top in the nation as it comes to having those various resources for the individual child that you're taking care of, not only with autism, but like I said, it could be Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, but you may be in another state where it's just pennies on a dollar and you're not going to get that support that's available. And that's where my platform comes in, because then my platform will actually bring to the forefront as far as what are those resources that are out there, what are those products or services, what is going to be to make it easier for you to take care of this individual. And then on top of that, also focusing on, okay, what states are better for individuals that do have children with these sort of you know, these sort of things that they're dealing with. What states have the funding, and then also bring it to the forefront what jobs are readily available for the individuals that may be thinking, okay, it's a little bit tough, but you can possibly find a job in another state that does pay well, but also caters to the individual a lot better than another state. And that is part of what the actual platform is going to be created.
That's huge. I didn't even know that, because in this day and age, especially COVID, we had that, what is it? The national movement where everyone just quit their job, right? I forget what the term for that was. Everyone just quit their job and moved somewhere else. I mean, I'm part of that movement, you know, and like this day and age with our technology and teleworking and all of that, it's easier to do that now. And so for parents with special needs, where they can find better care for their children, it would, you know, behoove of them to move somewhere where it would benefit them.
Yeah.
I love your platform because no, my son's 20 now. We'd fought because my husband was AGR and we weren't near a military base. We weren't in a military community. So he's starting school and he's having issues. He's chewing his thumbnails past the point of the quick. And I keep talking to the school. I'm like, can we get him assistance? Can we get him help? They're like, no. So I had went on my own and was like, I got him an independent evaluation done, and come to find out he had emotional disturbance disorder and ADHD. And he was so triggered and stressed out at school, but I couldn't get the school to help me, and I had to fight it. I ended up going to the deputy
Not even an
superintendent of
IEP?
schools.
Yeah, the IEP, not even a.
So what they had done was I filed a complaint with the superintendent because the school wasn't doing anything. So they hurried up to cover their butts and said he was on an RTI. And the lady called me and she's like, so they say he's on an RTI. And I'm like, what's an RTI? Like, I had no clue. And you could hear her jaw drop. So she was a former military spouse. And when she found out that I was a military spouse, all of a sudden she made everything happen at that school. Fast forward, we moved up to DC. And I was so nervous because I started like, I'm starting this new school and I've got to take all this paperwork and all this diagnosis. And I'm telling them, and they test him, and he's super smart, but he has anxiety. So I was like, he's not going to test well the first time. And it was just fighting, but oh my God, let me tell you guys, the school was amazing. They put him in SPED. They worked with him. I was blessed to be in Virginia up at that school. My daughter, she started kindergarten. They worked with her in reading. And then we left there and I was like, oh gosh, no, because we went back to Florida and we ended up again, military spouse, like you said, we need like liaisons for these schools or people to help you. Like I'd love to get
Jacksonville sucks. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, and
no, it wasn't
as far as school system. Where was it at?
It was actually in St. Cloud, Florida.
I don't know where that's at.
It's south of Orlando. It's a little, you know.
And it does happen where you have, just like yourself, you get up, you move, and it's sort of, you have to start all over again. But of course, now with the platform is going to be able to to once again get those resources based off of your geographical location. Do I want to follow you everywhere you want to go? No, I don't. That's your business. But at least give us the opportunity to say, hey, let us know where you are. Just give us that quick information, and then we can open up a world of resources that's going to be hopefully be able to help you. Because one of the things that we do want to include, I've been talking to teachers here in San Diego, is getting teachers involved as well to use the platform, and having that communication with the parents. And so when you decide, if it does happen that you have to move to another place, then you can automatically just say, okay, you're moving here. It'll get all that information, and it can also say, oh, well, is this the school that your child is going to? Yes. And then it'll probably connect you with a teacher that's there, and now you can have that communication with those teachers and say, okay, give me the rundown, what it is do I need? And so we're just continuously want to help you get as much information as possible, like I said, to help with the life cycle of your child, because all of that does have a part of it. If you get up and move, then yeah, it needs to be just a little bit easier when it comes to that. And hopefully this platform will make it easier if you do decide that you have to move, and it's going to help you get that information again and connect you with the parents and teachers, and also hopefully specialists that are going to be able to say, okay, got it. These are the next steps that you need to take to help it to be easier for you to do what it is that you need to do.
Huge.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Do you have a launch date yet for your platform, Jason?
The launch date, it was August, but it got actually pushed back because there are certain things that we decided that we needed to do to ensure that it was going to be a valuable product that everybody would be able to use and enjoy. And so it's pushed back to the end of the year, but it is.
Are we allowed to say what it's called yet or no?
Oh, it's called hibiscus.
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 Like this.
Like the plant.
Yeah, hibiscus. Considering that both my children, their names are Hawaiian, and of course the plant for Hawaii is the hibiscus.
Hibiscus. Mm-hmm.
It is, and just reading about it, it is a flower of hope, and it's a delicate, gentle flower. It really is, but with a lot of care, it can thrive, and that's all that we want for our kids. My oldest is very delicate, to me, and she needs all the care that she possibly can get. And so when I thought of the name and I thought about my two girls, and I said to myself, okay, this is it. Because it was going to be called Special Social at first, but off our marketing research, using the word actually special can be a derogatory word to certain individuals in a community. So it's about, okay, how do we
you have it trademarked already?
We're getting it trademarked as well. Yes.
Cool. So speaking of plants, let me look at the comments on Facebook. Big Girl says, I have a tree in my background. I have a tree in my house. Yeah.
I have hibiscus at my house.
So I have a tree in my background. Yes, that's right, Earl. Thanks, Nick.
Yes, and nothing grows here, so you just
thanks for pointing that out.
The wind blows.
I have actually I have a bunch of hibiscus around me, only because I'm Pacific Islander, Hawaiian, Filipino, blah blah. So that's pretty cool. I didn't know that about the name and what it stood for.
I think it's a great name, and I think it has a lot of capability to really become, of course you want it to become national. Yeah. And I do like the idea of the hope behind it and kind of grace behind it. Because I think if we're going to keep pushing, I've been thinking lately a lot about kind of the future. What is the future of hope in our lives? Because you know how it used to be, hope, we were just a little more hopeful, but over the last, say, several years, and specifically maybe the last 5 years, hope has felt a little bit like it's endangered. And so I love that focus, and also the focus of grace, giving people that grace to be able to have a kind of a one-stop shopping center, that an anchor, if you will, for you Navy people, an of something to reach out to that will help you go where you need to go to get your child's needs met. I can't think of anything more critical. And that feeling of when you're somewhere and you need to meet your child's need and you don't know what to do. To me, I can't think of anything more frustrating and scary.
Yeah, thank you. And like you said, hope, that is the purpose of it. And also, we're a benefit corporation here in California. So we think about all of the stakeholders that are involved, from the individuals that use the platform to the doctors to
Right.
specialists and all of that. But we're going to be a complement to those nonprofits and charities in the area because I am a former board member with Autism Society San Diego. I still support them. I really do. And some of the things is that a lot of times people in San Diego just don't know that it exists. Even though you may have Facebook, even though you may have Instagram, people don't actually know that this nonprofit exists.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know it existed until the teachers told me you need to go to Autism Society and blah, blah, blah. This is the address. I'm like, what?
yeah.
You know, I didn't know as a young person what any of this meant. So
Yeah.
having that platform would have helped me so much.
Yep. And what we'll do is that for every dollar that we get, then a percentage of it is going to go to those undeserved nonprofits and undeserved charities as well, that we see that actually do good in the community, but may just need just a little bit extra funding as well. So we're going to donate to those nonprofits and charities and be a complementary platform for them to help them get their mission across.
Awesome, Jason. All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit. It's going to be a darker subject. So it is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And you go on Snapchat and you look at the filters and you're like, yeah, let me get a cute filter, right? And they have this one filter that says sexual assault prevention, I'm a survivor. And unfortunately, here's the statistics now, and I recently looked it up. I used to say 1 in 100 men, right? The VA said 1 in 100 men get sexually assaulted. Now it's 1 in 50. So that's even more. And I've always said it was 1 in 3 women and in the military that get sexually assaulted. Unfortunately, all 3 women here are survivors of that. So it's 3 out of 3. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Like, and these are only the numbers that are reported.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so that's just so mind-boggling about that. But what I'm very happy about is that there's new legislation that has passed that is encouraging commands to let the investigation go outside of their hands to a third party. Because of the fact that I posted something today on VTT, and it was a meme that said, tell me about a stupid time that you got in trouble for in the military, something that was dumb. Yeah. And unfortunately, I got that meme off of the Salty Women's Veterans Group. And when I looked through the comments, there was a lot of women that said, I got in trouble for being raped. How the fuck are you going to get in trouble for that? And well, you know what? Yeah. I got in trouble for it. They tried to transfer me off the ship. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I had to tell them I did nothing wrong. I said, I'm a star sailor. I'm good at what I do. I'm one of the subject matter experts. And you're going to transfer me off? They're like, oh, well, we thought that's what you wanted. I said, do not do that. I don't think so.
That's what they wanted you to want. Mm-hmm. They wanted to protect themselves from ever having to really actually call into question the behavior of their primary people. You know, I got in way back in the early 80s in 1983, and we were still very much an experiment, a social experiment, especially as an officer. At the time I was enlisted. But I absolutely knew that I was not going to be able to tell or that it was going to risk my entire career. And I really, at that time, I was in basic training when it happened. And I'd been raised in the military. I loved the military. This was what I wanted to do.
Where'd you go to basic training?
I went Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Okay.
And they had, is that where you went?
Yeah.
So originally I went in as a 71 Lima, you know, and I just wanted, you know, to just
So for us who's not Army, what
because
does that mean?
everybody, yeah, I'm sorry, it's a administrative specialist for you.
Okay.
Well, actually,
Army.
it was a file clerk because I was a 71 Lima.
Mhm.
It was the 5-week, it was the shortest AIT, so I could just get out of the house, be an adult. I was ready to take on the world. I was just gonna go. So yeah, I was a 71 Lima.
Right. So anyway, yeah, they were, I just knew, I kind of knew what time it was. And so I just, when this happened, I just made a decision that I was never going to breathe a word of it. And I never did. And actually, I didn't really ever talk about it until 2018 when that reporter was talking to me, and he spent 4 days with me pumping oil wells. And so naturally lots of subject matter comes up. It's a long day. And I kind of mentioned that I was sexually assaulted, and it made it, he put it in his story. It was a great story, and I love that writer, and you know, I'm not upset with him about it, but none of my family knew, nobody knew about this because I had just kept it to myself. But it had, you know, it had absolutely impacted every single thing that I did in the military. I can't, I guess I'm not sorry that I protected myself, because I just knew that I was going to have to pay with my career. And I'm so glad now that you don't. Well, I think it still maybe exists.
It kind of still exists, you know, here and there, but as a whole, the military is trying to get rid of that and do the right thing as a whole.
Yeah.
So
I have a friend that's stationed on the ship that actually got extra duty orders because of her filing a complaint. She's literally on a ship right now getting crap duty orders because she filed a complaint against another male.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like you're ostracized. It's like, oh, because you're a female, you're trying to get your way, you're trying to be special, and typical female job, you're an admin person, and now you already have it easy and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like, okay.
It's microaggression. It's
it
another
really
form, it's microaggression. It's a way to extend the rape. And that's, you know, now at this time, of course, if something like that happened to me, you know, I would react absolutely differently. And very assertive, and I would simply say no, and you're not doing that either.
Yeah. And that's what I did. I had to be very assertive and stand my ground and stand up for myself. And I was like, pretty much, you got me fucked up. Like, that's not happening. Like, and then Jason knows me from the military. I was way more vocal then. And luckily, like, I was vocal. But what about those ones that aren't? You know, what about the ones that are so apprehensive or shy, or like they join the military and they just shut down, you know, like, or they just shut down and can't talk, you know what I mean? Like, that's the sad part about that. And so, like, that's why if you have a friend and you see that they're going through something, and I posted this today on my story too, the real ones know or can hear you when you're being quiet.
Yeah.
Right? The real ones they know when you're being quiet. Like, they can hear that.
But, you know, another aspect of it is, you know, of course, I was a warrant officer at CW before when I retired. And when you're an officer and when there's an investigation going on and the upper command's not doing the right thing, now being a warrant officer, we speak our opinions. And I've been part of those investigations, and I said, you either do the right thing here, or I'm going to IG myself, because this is effed up. And, you know, I've been in situations that were very uncomfortable because I went against what they were saying we needed to do because it wasn't right. And I just didn't care. And being a warrant officer now, you know, we're a little bit different in the O grades, but I always felt that you treat people with dignity and respect. And if something went wrong, no matter what it was, in aviation, if we mess up, the aircraft crashes and people die, right? So we have that mentality, and we need every single person working on that aircraft being smart and focused on that day and not subtracted or, not thinking about something else other than what they're doing to that aircraft, right? And that's with any job in the military. It's very important. And I don't know how many screaming matches I got in it with, you know, 05s and 06s who just wanted it to go away.
Mhm.
It's not going to go away because it doesn't go away for that person. It never goes away for that person, ever. And I don't care if it happened to you as a child. I don't care if it happened to you as a teenager, or as a young adult, or as an adult. That trauma does not ever go away. Am I wrong? I don't think I'm wrong.
Nope,
And
it gets worse. If you don't seek help or you don't talk about it, it gets
Mhm.
worse. And I know that for a fact. Jason knows I told him that I didn't go back to the VA. I got out of active duty 2010 and I re-enlisted and then got back out in 2013. I didn't go back to the VA till like 2019,
Yeah.
2020, because of the fact that they didn't have many things for women. But what I'm so happy now is that so much has changed. And now the VA has a women's clinic. And what's so sad is that there's an MST clinic. There's a specific clinic at the VA, the MST clinic. You know,
Because there's
how
so many of them.
bad is that? Is that there's so many of us that they need that. You know, but I remember when I first got out, there was no OBGYN, there was no women's, nothing. Like you had to outsource that, or they would like dismiss women's health as like, oh, she's just on her period, or PMSing, you know, like when there's real problems going on, and they would just dismiss it.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that there are a lot of changes. There's still so much more changes that need to happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I've done a ton of writing about how different women are from men, and why that clash continues to sort of be a thing in the military. But just in the way that we process information, the way that they process information, but it could be a perfect marriage of talent, on the female side, and talent on the male side, because there's so many differences. We would complement each other, but it turns into,
Right.
and I think I couldn't help but when I was overseas, I remember the AFN commercials, and I don't know if you guys ever remember these, that said, remember.
That's all we had was AFN.
Yeah, remember.
That's all we had, like
Yeah.
nothing else.
It struck me because I don't know if we had these stateside, because I wasn't active duty, but the said, remember, rape is a crime. And it struck me that here we are, a nation that thinks it's going to go over and bring civilization, to the warring masses in third world countries. But actually what happens is the war and the baseness and banal nature of it actually finds itself in us. And we have to remind people, remember, rape is a crime, as if we've forgotten that how to be, it blew me away. I used to commercial and go, well, I'm sure glad they're reminding us that rape is a crime.
I mean, you would think it's common sense, but
it's that, I think that the blaming of the victim, the moving of the victim.
oh yeah, I got victim blamed. You shouldn't be drunk. You shouldn't be wearing that. Blah blah blah. Well,
yes.
a rapist shouldn't rape.
Right.
Period.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what you wear or don't wear. It has nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
My story is a little different. Mine was when I was deployed, I would exercise with this officer. He was an older gentleman, so it was just friendly. Okay, we'd go work out together. So I'd have, always keep a battle buddy with you, somebody to walk you back to the tents, shit like that. And one night he raped me, and
Terrible.
I never spoke to him again. I didn't report anything. And then a couple weeks later, I missed my period and found out I was pregnant. So
you're lying. No, you're not lying. You're valid. You're valid. But I'm just in shock. Like,
so I went to my company commander and I asked him to approve my emergency R&R, and I was going to go home and abort. I got home and I couldn't do it. I went to Fort Sam and I had them do a pregnancy test, so I didn't have to go back overseas. My unit made me come back to the deployment after a pregnancy test so that I could do my own paperwork and refrad myself out. They wanted an investigation done because I was unmarried. They wanted to know who it was. When I tried to talk to them, I had female sergeants come, superiors, and give me this interview questionnaire, which was almost, like you said, it was the victim blaming. It was, well, you know, you're an attractive female. You have to be careful of the way you present yourself.
But you're in uniform. You're in PT gear.
Right. You have to be more ladylike, and you're very friendly with the gentleman, and you're very attractive. So it was very, I felt so angry. So I did my refrat paperwork, and my boss, who had my back the whole time, kept trying to push me to the IG. Well, the guy that had done this was married, and he told me that because he was married, I could be investigated for adultery. And I had a 2-year-old son at home. I did not want to prolong my deployment. I wanted to go home and get away. And I did. And I did not abort. Now I have this amazing 17-year-old daughter that drives me bananas. But, you know, I had the conversation with her. And I've always been more protective of her. But, you know, I'm
so sorry. Thank you for sharing that, Brandon.
That's
it's really strong of you to share that.
Yeah, that was very, very courageous to share that.
Are you getting child support?
So
I want to know.
Actually, when I got home, I didn't. So we talk about, so when I got home, I didn't tell anyone what happened. I lied to them. I told everybody that I had sex with some random guy, because I would rather them think that I was promiscuous than a victim.
Yeah.
So a lot of people thought that for a long time. And then I finally, you know, because I hid myself in desserts, and I gained a lot of weight, and I wanted to hide myself. I didn't want to be outgoing or personable or beautiful. I didn't want to be any of those things, because then that would happen to me again. So I got up to about 200 pounds. And then actually when I joined Irreverent Warriors, that was kind of my low point. And thankfully, through one of the women I met there, who I adore, her and I ended up on a bridge together holding hands and never met each other, crying as we crossed this bridge.
That's so amazing.
Oh my
gosh. And she's still
a
really good friend of mine, and I adore her, but she's the one that's like, you've got to keep pushing forward. You've got to keep working on yourself. So I've been doing this just for the last year, and it's been working.
That's great. Irreverent Warriors, guys. Like, I'm not sponsored, but
I know. It's just the only veteran group I'm a member of so far.
I'm gonna attest to this. Like, I went on my first hike last month, Jack's Beach, and oh my God, it was amazing. Like, just the camaraderie, and like, it was so heartfelt. It was like something that you didn't know that you needed. You didn't know that you needed this inspiration from other veterans who also have demons. Like, but we're all in this together, and like, you have that, like, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it.
I know. It's just addictive. You on one hike, I swear, you guys, you check out one hike in your city and you'll go to all of them. Because I'm sitting here planning out Knoxville, and
I'm going to Fort Walton Beach. I'm going to Key West. They have one in San Diego coming up in June.
City in Oklahoma?
They have Tulsa coming up.
Yes.
They have Norfolk and Virginia. I'm telling you, I've already looked at all.
We're not sponsors for Irreverent Warriors.
I'm not
It's just really fun.
And this weekend was just amazing. It was so good. It was, and they call it Silky's Hike. So you have your ranger panties on, and then like they have like their ruck ears if you want or not. I just had a bikini top, whatever. That's my.
You can check out Lynn's Facebook. She's got all the good pictures. She looks great all the time. So
Yes, I've never seen her look bad.
She tried.
Stop. No. But yeah, I'm so glad that, there's 3 of us here, and we've come out on top, so we've been through all this stuff. We've been through a lot. We've been through deployments, active duty. We all excelled in our careers. And look at us now. You know what I mean? So there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, yes, it sucks that this shit happens, but here we are, and we're doing great. Right.
And we're able to help other people. Like, as we get better, I have a lot of people, especially, that I help with grief or when they stress out. Everybody comes to me and I'm like, okay, put your air mask on first. I was like, you've got to be able to breathe before you can do anything else, before you can help anybody else.
Leah, she used to co-host with me, and she would say all the time on the airplane, they say, put your mask on first before you help anyone else. And that was like her thing. And that is so true. I'm glad to hear it again.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing. And then I tell people, I'm like, look, I'm guilty of, I will help everybody else so that I can avoid my own stuff. So I'll just spend my
Yes.
time like, I'll help everybody else. I don't need to worry about mine. So I do try to take care of myself now more.
Kind of
You
therapy.
absolutely have to. You cannot pour out of an empty vessel, but I do the same thing. And sometimes it's one of the symptoms now that I recognize as something that I do when I'm triggered. And so I will automatically kind of focus outward. I'll start thinking about some of my coaching clients that, and maybe I'll even be tempted to reach out to them, and which is so highly, or just say, hey, want to check on you. I haven't heard from you for 2 weeks, which is just incredibly inappropriate. I mean, do it because but I always know when I'm tempted to do those things, then I know that it's a sign that I need some me time. I need to be out with my cattle and, combing my cattle and kissing my cows and, doing the things that give me joy.
Yeah, and Cliff and I always talk about that. Like, you should always have something, right? Cliff, what do you say? Have something that gives you purpose, that
Always
allows you. Yeah.
Yeah, we always got to find that place where we can recharge our batteries, or where we can rethink,
Right.
or where, as a mental health warrior, I always talk about all the time is it's okay to go and do things that make you feel better, and then come back to your family and friends, because, we all are human beings. We all have a lot of things going on. And one of the things I like to do, and I posted a picture today, is me and my dog Falco, we always go for walks or runs. I can't run right now, and I'm sorry if I was fidgeting in my chair. I had Botox in my back shots because I got issues in C4 through C7. But even on days where, for me, exercise is relief, and Rachel and I talked about this before, that's my stress relief. And I can't always do that because of my injuries I sustained in the military, and it becomes very frustrating and depressing for me. And so I have to find ways to work around it. And just like with Brandy talking about all these other things with Reverend, was it Reverend?
Irreverent warriors.
Yeah. Just finding something like that, and look at the smile that it brings to her face when you mention it. I mean, that was such a great thing. And I think sometimes we forget about self-care, and self-care is so important, and it covers so many facets in our life. And, if something, or if you suffered trauma in your life, and we all have suffered trauma one way, shape, or form or another, that, it's okay to deal with that trauma, but it's also okay to move away from it and go on and live the best life that you can live in this life, because we only get one chance, right? We don't get a second chance at this life. And so you need to make it the best life that you can make it. And that's why Lynn and I, we do this show. That's why I have the Mental Health Warrior. That's why Rhonda does what she does, and Jason does what he does, and Brandy with what you do, because that's all we want for everybody who's listening, or who's on watching the podcast right now.
Yep, that's right. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Cliff, go ahead and give us the brief of the show.
Oh, well, I want to thank everybody for joining in to Veterans Trash Talk. Please go out and visit and watch all of our podcasts on veteranstrashtalk.com. You can go to our shop and look at the merch of the shops that we have on there. We got t-shirts. I just had mine made. It's the Veteran Trash Talk Mental Health Warrior t-shirt. That is my 69 Mustang. You can't tell that it's green on the shirt. I didn't notice it, but one thing I had about these shirts when I had it made, I had a friend of mine, Linda, that was on the show, whose daughter unfortunately completed suicide several years ago, and she started the Lowen's Law in Maryland, when she changed the law to make sure school counselors were getting thing. And she goes, it'd be great if we had a t-shirt that had the crisis text number on the back of it. So on my t-shirts that I have made, you can go out there, and you can, hopefully soon they'll be available on Veterans Trash Talk. You can get you a t-shirt that might save a life, because you never know when you walk by somebody who might be having an issue or problem. They can look at your back, and then they can text that number, text home to 741-741. But I want to thank everybody for joining in. I want to thank all of our guests. Jason, I look forward to your website coming up to help all the parents out there with with disabled children. I think that's a wonderful thing that you're doing. And if you need any help or anything, please reach out to me. Lynn has all my contact information. I was a contracting officer for 15 years. So I know all about your world, and I was an IT guy. So if you need anything, just please don't hesitate to reach out. And thanks everybody for watching the show, and I'll turn it back over to you, Lynn.
Okay, so does anybody have any final thoughts? Rachel, do you have any final thoughts to leave us with?
My final thought is that one of the things you were talking about, Irreverent Warrior, how you felt and how included, I almost, almost get teary, because that's how I feel with VTT. I feel like I found my place. I mean, I remember posting one time and I said, I found my people.
I find my tribe, right?
People.
Yeah.
So that's my final thought is finding your people, you know,
Mhm.
just letting us envelop you. You know, we do trash talk each other, but the very focus that we're here for is to
To save lives.
Mhm.
Mhm. Brandy, go ahead. Last thoughts.
No, I'm right on board with Rachel. Like that's what I've learned in the last 2 weeks. We just have to keep peopling. We can't just shut down. When you're feeling stressed, you need
Sometimes
to
I don't want to people.
Sometimes
I have to like force myself to people, but yes, you're right.
it'll make you feel better. Just people a little bit or pet a cat. You're good.
All right, Jason, give us your plugs and last thoughts.
Yes, I want to say thank you for everybody, to everybody. Thanks, Lynn, for having me. Also, Clifford. Thank you for sharing your stories. I really do. I am very, very humbled by that because it does take a lot to actually tell those stories. You know, my wife, she was involved in sexual violence growing up, and also my cousin, God bless her soul, she's not here anymore because she was a victim of violence as well up in Oakland, California, and she was, I don't want to say one of the lucky ones that didn't get out, but if she would have had that necessary help, or she could have reached out to somebody, then she would probably be here today. So I want to thank you all for sharing you all stories, honestly. And yeah, be on the lookout for the website and the app. It is coming. I am on Instagram. Actually, it's a special social #1 on Instagram. We do give out information and just stories about individuals, and it's all it's all inspiration, and it's just giving you that information, and hopefully you can be a better individual when it comes to those individuals you take care of. And also, if you know anybody that's taking care of somebody like that, then just like Clifford said in the beginning, just be mindful, be kind, and let's make this world a better place.
All right. Thanks for that, Jason. Thanks everybody for joining us. The website is veterantrashtalk.com. Check us out, our merch, our shop, and our podcasts are all on there for you to look out and see. And thanks for joining us on another episode of Throat Punch Monday. All right, guys, take care. You have a good evening.
Thanks, Lynn.